this meeting. Okay. We're going to talk about identity and access management today. So let's say you got different teams. So in IT, there will be different teams. One team is doing just VM creation, and there's another team who is taking care of storage. There's another team who's taking care of databases. When I say taking care, they create the databases, so they create storage. Or when there is an L1 guy or just a first level engineer who joins the company, he will not even have permissions to create a virtual machine or even create a database. For them, they will give read-only permissions so that they can just look around. So the initial 30 days or 60 days will be the look around period. The person who is working on VPCs or the high level architecture perspective, he will be given just VPC permissions. So we are talking about various teams, different teams who are working on different activities. At that point, the team who's responsible for EC2 creation do not need to have permission on database, this part. Or the team that handles the storage does not need to have permissions on EC2 or RDS or VPC. And the guy who's a finance guy, he wants to look at everything. So the finance guy wants to know how many instances were created. He wants to know the billing part of it. So he wants access to everything, but we did not give him right access. That means he will not be able to create new instances, but he will be able to look at the instances created. So that will be a read-only permission, right? So we can give permissions to a very granular level, right? So let's say we got a couple of users, right? Let's say what I'm going to do is create a team now. Create a team. And this team, the team over here, call number one, the VM creation team, or the VM team, or usually called as infra guys. They work just on creating instances, the EC2 instances in Amazon Web Services. So let's say Alan is from infra team, and his job is to create VMs, right? That means that he needs to have permissions on EC2. What kind of permissions? Write and read, isn't it? Let's talk about another team whose job is just storage. They just have to manage storage, or S3. So let's say there's a new L1 guy, a a level 1 guy or a tier 1 guy, and his name is John. And we don't want to give him write permissions there, and we just want to give him read permissions. Okay? Right, so let's stop here and then just create two users called as Alan and John and give read-write permissions on EC2 and give John just read permission to S3, right? So the account that we have used to log in here is the root account. This is the root account that I have logged in with, right? Well, I don't want to use my root account to manage the services in AWS, right? I will use role-based access controls. It's called as RBAC, role-based access controls. So depending on the job role, depending on the job description, an identity called Alan or an identity called John is given permissions to the respective resources that are present in Amazon. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Give Alan read and write permissions on EC2 Give John read permission in S3. Then we'll log in as Alan and John respectively and see whether those permissions are actually effective. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Well, to add on to this, let's say if there are 15 people, let's say if there are 15 people like Alan, 15 team members like Alan in this team, and there are 20 L1s joining in that team. What we're going to do, are we going to give permissions to each user one by one? So we give Alan read-write permissions, and then rest of the 15 team members read-write permissions 15 times, and then give John read permission on S3, and the rest of the 20 or 19 members read permission on S3 20 times. That's something we do not want to do. Rather, what we'll do is create groups. Right? We create groups. Add users to the group. Then give permissions on groups. So that way you don't have to work 20 times or 100 times or 15 times, because you have given permissions to the group and the user is added to the group. Okay. What we're going to do is create groups called as create groups. Group number 1 is EC2 write access. Group number 2, create S3 read access, and then add Alan and rest of the team members to this group. And here add John and rest of the team members to this group. And these groups have respective permissions, right? So I'm going to minimize this notepad and get into action. So in the services section, let's go to security, identity and compliance. The first option is identity and access manager. Let's go ahead and click on it. There's some lag here that you may see, the internet buffering things, but it will eventually pop. We got 13 user accounts already that I have with my account, so let's not worry about that. Let's go ahead and click on users on the left side, and that's how you create users. Okay. Now I'm going to click on add user and give him a username. And the username, the employee name is Alan. Okay. Now there are two options here. Do you want Alan to have programmatic access, and or do you want Alan to have AWS Management Console access? The second option, AWS Management Console access, is pretty straightforward. That means Alan will have a user ID and password to log into the Amazon AWS console, just like the way I logged into my account. Whereas the other one, which is programmatic access, is used for APIs, software development kits. Let's say there's an application that is constantly pumping information into the AWS cloud. Information can be continuously be written into AWS or read from AWS only if you have permissions. Let's say you're writing a small script to gather information about the number of instances that are running in your in your North Carolina data center. Out of the 15 machines, how many of them are stopped? How many of them are in running state? How many of them are terminated? You want to get a report of that. So you write a small script and you hit your AWS instance or the AWS console. The only way to get into it is with programmatic access, because you need to have some permissions to get into your AWS account, read the number of instances that are running, stopped or terminated, and then put it in the form of a report format. So programmatic access is a user ID and a password, technically in AWS terms called as access key ID and a secret access key. that you will hard code into your script, and every time that script runs, it will use that access key ID and secret access key to log in to your AWS account and gather information or even write information. So if you want to create a virtual machine, let's say, or instance in AWS, without logging into AWS account, and that can be done with the Alan's account, right? This Alan has write access, read/write access. So you can use Alan's access key and Alan's secret access key in the script that you created, and that will create an instance directly for you. We will look into it once we are working on the AWS CLI concepts. About the programmatic access, we'll definitely deep dive into the programmatic access stuff, right? But for now, let's go ahead and check both of these, programmatic access and AWS console access, right? The next option again is pretty much straightforward. What password do you want to give for the user account called Alan? This is a custom generated password as well, which I can give as per your company's requirement. So I'll use my standard password, whatever I use. I can check this box which says user must create a new password and next sign in, because I, as a creator owner of this account, will be able to log in with Alan's account because now I know his password, right? So for compliance purposes, I will have this checked so that users, whoever, it could be Alan or John, will be forced to reset their passwords. They cannot use the same password that I give. That's good, right? So that the admin doesn't know the password himself. Yeah, he will know the default password, right? Let's hit next here. Now it says, hey, do you want to add user to this group? Do you want to copy permissions from an existing group or existing user, or attach policies directly, right? To add user to the group, I must have had groups already. Like I said, these groups, EC2 write access, S3 read access, these groups must have been already created, but I don't have them, right? So for now, I'll skip this step. I'll skip all of these and I'll do the manual process, this step, where I want to give Alan EC2 read write permissions and then John read permissions. Once we're done with this manual process, then we'll go for group creation and then user creation later on. For now, let's say I don't have a group. I do have groups from my previous projects, whatever I was doing. But for now, I'll say attach policies directly. When I scroll down, I have a bunch of policies. I've got so many of them here. See? But rather than searching for them, by scrolling down, I'll click here and do some more intelligent searches. I'll type EC2 and let's see what I get. All right. So do you want to give this guy EC2 full access, or EC2 role for SSM, EC2 container access, EC2 read-only access as well, right? And on the right side, you will see what kind of permissions, like a description. So if I'm giving EC2 read-only access, I'm giving him read-only access to it, Amazon EC2. That's what it says, right? And so many of these. EC2 report access, EC2 automation role, right? So for now, I'll go ahead and select, let me give him EC2 full access. Well, by giving him EC2 full access, he will be able to create instances. He will be able to delete and terminate instances. He will be able to attach volumes to the instances, take snapshot of those instances, create load balancers, do auto scaling, and everything that's there in the EC2 console, right? So I just expanded this one, and I'll see a small script here. This script is called as JSON scripting. So if I scroll down further, it's giving permissions to EC2, everything under EC2, it says allow. Load balancing, allow. And then CloudWatch, which is monitoring, allowed. Auto scaling is allowed. All of that is allowed with the help of this script. So this script runs in the background. Yeah. So I'll minimize this for now. And I want to give him EC2 full access. Let's say next. Cool, we're done. That's a summary. You're creating a user called Alan. You're giving him programmatic access. and also AWS console access. The password is custom password, which I know. And yes, when Alan logs in, he's forced to reset his password. And the permissions that I've given him is EC2 full access. So I've attached policies directly to the user. I'm not following role-based access control here. I'm not following group-based permissions. So I did not create a group here. Okay, so I create a user. Awesome. So that's it. My user account is created. And one thing that you see is secret access key and secret access ID. Sorry, access key ID and secret access key. I can send an email to Alan's corporate account or whatever to notify him about it, or maybe just call him up and say that, hey, your account is created in AWS now, give that a shot. But this is something he will not use to log into AWS. As I said, these are programmatic access key IDs and access keys which are used only for logging into applications or SDKs, right? Okay, you can expand that and see further information. That is done. But before even you click on close, make sure that you download this CSV, because the secret access key, if I click on show, it will give me that. So I need to use access key ID and secret access key to log into application. So once I click on close, I will never be able to regenerate that again. Right? Alan is here, and I will never be able to generate this sheet again. So that's the user ID, that's the access key, that's the secret access key, that's the link that you gotta use to log into AWS. So secret access key is never available. Well, the question is, what if I lose it? Well, yes, if you lose it, you can definitely go ahead and create a new access key ID by going into this console, which is security credentials. Go here under the user. So I went into the user account called Alan, clicked on security credentials, scroll down, and then you will have the access key. You see that the secret access key is not here. What I can do is create a new access key. Absolutely, I can do that. Create new access key does that for me. It gives you another option to download that CSV, because it knows that once I've downloaded that and I click on close, I will never be able to download that. See, there's no option to download here. Yes, you can deactivate that, remove it. Okay. Let's try to create another access key, third one. Well, yeah, you're supposed to get an error message that limit exceeded. You really cannot create more than 2 access keys for one user account. Okay, that is a by default quota that you got. If you want to create more than 2 access key IDs for a user account, yes, contact Amazon AWS support. And the way to do that is on the top right hand side, click on support and then click on support center. They're going to give you a form, fill that out, and then tell your grievance to them. They're going to sort it out for you. That's really important. Okay. So now that we have Alan's access key ID, Alan's password and everything, we know that we will be able to log in. So let's give it a shot. Okay. Now it says IAM user link. I will just copy that. This is the main dashboard of Identity and Access Management. I'll copy that and launch Chrome in incognito mode and paste it right here and say enter. Let's see what we got now. It's going to give me a new AWS login console where I can type in the user ID and password. Okay. It says the account is that, and username is Alan, and I'll type the password that I used to create an account and to sign in. What's going to happen next is it was going to ask you, hey, change your password, because the admin already knows about it. So type the password, the old password, and give it a new password as well. Uh-oh. That's it, your password is changed. So now Alan is an EC2 administrator. He cannot manage S3. He cannot create new buckets in S3. He cannot create databases, nothing. right? So yeah, EC2 he will have full access. Now you know what? As we know that EC2 Alan will have full access. You look at the top. It says Alan at the rate your domain name. That's the name that I gave. But EC2 is gonna have full access. Let's go ahead and try to do something with S3 and see if he's able to create any buckets or permissions or things like that. Let's see what happens. That's it. So it says you do not have permissions to use AWS S3 console. That's exactly because we gave Alan EC2 access only, not an S3. That's going to happen for rest of the services as well. But for EC2, he is a full admin. He is the man for EC2. He can log in and create accounts, create instances, terminate them, create load balance and everything. He will have full access to that. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and I'll close this account. And in a similar way, you can do it for this guy, John, as well. You give him S3 read access. I'm going to show you this thing, which is role-based access control. For that, I'm going to go to groups and create a new group. Give it a name, like, hey, I want to give John. No, this will be like ES3 read access. Okay, that's a group that I'm creating. Once I hit next, do you want to attach any policies here? Yeah, I want to make this group, or the members of the group, just read the S3 or simple storage services. S3, yeah. There's Amazon S3 read-only access. I'm going to attach this policy to this group. Hit next, review that. That means that this group, which is S3 read access, will have the permissions to read only or read S3 only. So create that group. That's good. Now that my group is created, hey, where's that? Okay, now that my group is created, I need to add users to this group. I can do that by going here and adding few users here. Let me add Alan. Let me add Alan himself. Okay, add users. That's it. Alan is added to this group. What I'm going to do now, launch the Chrome or the browser in incognito mode again. Paste that link and try logging in with Alan's account and see how that goes. Is he now able to access S3? Because earlier we got permission error, right? Okay, he's getting in. That's it. That's great. We'll click on services. Now you know that Alan's got full access to EC2. Anyways, we are aware of that. When we clicked on S3 last time, we got an error message that is not allowed to get in, or permissions were not there, whatever. But let's see what we'll have now. You should be able to at least read the buckets which are created in. Yeah, that works now, right? But then let's try to create a bucket. We didn't say write permissions in S3, we just said create permissions, right? Let's give it a name, S3 demo in AWS, whatever. Create that, okay? So you see, you do not have permissions. Absolutely, Aaron does not have permissions to create buckets in S3. He has permissions to just read the information that's there. So the identity and access management really works, right? That's a quick demo on identity and access management, right? I hope this was informative for you, yeah? Thank you so much.